Well, good evening to all our fastball fanatics, and welcome to another episode of the Baseball Bums. I am Benny Scala, aka The Player, and you may know me from that hit adult educational film, Magnum Cum Loudly. And if we were bums, then I am joined by my fellow shaman of sloth, the great Jimmy Farrow. Jimmy, I don't know about you, your neck of the woods, but the weather here is so beautiful that the great Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub himself, if he was still with us, he'd say, let's play two today.
It has been pretty nice the last couple of days, but let me get my disclaimer in. The only reason why I'm wearing a football shirt for a baseball show is all my shit's in the wash. How you doing out there, folks?
How you doing?
Yeah.
It's a nice shirt, though.
Yeah, well, too bad we can never get a good season out of them, but,
This might be
whatever.
our year. I've said for
This
the
is a
last.
baseball show. Let's forget about the Jets for
Yeah.
now, please.
Well, Jimmy, what I'm going to do is present you with a number of baseball-related topics, which we, the baseball bums, will give our fairly educated takes on. So, you ready for the first pitch?
Fire away.
All right. Well, let's start with the new Yankee closer,
Oh,
Devin
man.
Williams. So, in the past three seasons, this guy's batting average against has been 151, 129, and 133. So far this year, 385. Maybe a bit too soon to panic, but is it possible we're seeing the love child of Ed Whitson and Hideki Irabu? We know from experience. Now, there's certain guys that are just not meant to play in the Big Apple, right?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned him before. Was it Vasquez who was probably the most exquisite example of that? Had a really solid career. Was it Javi Vasquez, um, the pitcher that spit the bit against the Red Sox, and then he came back years later and spit the bit again. But he had a great career in between. Some people can play in New York, and some people can't. I think it is too early to decide that with this particular situation. I think that he's going to figure it out. But there is the one thing. Do you think that because the worm seems to have turned for him after getting burned in the playoffs with the big, well, who ruined him in the playoffs last year? Was it Bregman? Somebody ruined him. He had a key loss in a very clutch
Okay.
situation,
Yeah.
and since then he's been pretty much not so good,
Yeah.
as you alluded to with these numbers. So, like, is that his moment where he got crushed? Gee, that would be unfortunate for us to not factor that in and sign him.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to let one game ruin your career, though. I mean,
We've seen it happen. Haven't we seen a turning point with players? You can point to games where I was like, "Yep," and this was the end. I'm sure
right.
you could if you really put it under a magnifying glass.
You
But
remember?
no, I think this is premature. And Ed Whitson and Hideki Irabu were starting pitchers. This is a different situation. He's a
And so was
closer.
Andy Hawkins. Same thing.
Right, right. Andy Hawkins, good God. I think about people like Carl Pavano. There's a lot of people who have come here and haven't been able to do
Yeah.
anything, you know?
New York anxiety. So, Jimmy, with all the hoopla over the Dodgers and Otani, there's a very potent force in the National League that is completely flying under the radar, and it's this guy right here. His name is Paul Skeens. He came up
Yes.
around midseason last year with the Pirates. Wins the Rookie of the Year. Actually, came in third in the Cy Young with like 24 starts. I've never heard a bad word about this kid. So maybe after the show, can we arrange a conference call with Cashman and Hal, and maybe we can get this guy? I just feel like he's going to rot away in Pittsburgh.
It feels like moves like this are the kind of moves we used to make. It doesn't feel like a move we make nowadays. We really bank on blase, middle of the road guys that get way too much money to begin with. I find it ironic that Rodon got such a huge contract, which I never would have signed him to. When your career high in wins is 12 to 14 wins, I'm not investing Roger Clemens kind of money in you. If you follow my logical thinking about it, we don't do things like that anymore. We rely on midstream guys, and it's not good. But if you even go back to the past, like the dynasty of the Yankees, they went for surefire things. And Skeens is a surefire thing in my mind.
Oh,
He
yeah.
he's basically young and powerful, and his motion is not unnatural. And I don't think he's going to burn his arm out or anything like that. He really looks like, can I say, like the Justin Verlander or possibly even a Roger Clemens of his generation. It's like,
Right.
this is a guy you go and get. This is
Yeah.
the guy you go and get. The Yankees used to do things like this when David Cohn was in the height of his gun for hire. They got him. If you don't get David Cohn, you do not start winning World Series. Agreed?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so a move like Skeens puts to rest everything as far as are you really trying to win something and are you building for the long haul? I don't see any reason why we can't find a way to fleece them, and we've got the money and we do have chips. And what is Pittsburgh really? What is Paul Skeens gaining? We know what the Pirates would be gaining by just spending all their money on him. Sure, he'd be wealthy, but would they be able to balance it out with a team around them? No.
They
You
would blow
know?
their whole wad on him, and they'd have nothing left for
Yeah.
anybody
I mean,
else.
if I'm Paul Skeens and I want to win, then I'm thinking about cities like New York and Los Angeles and Boston and stuff like that. Yes, Boston. If I want to like get a shot at a World Series ring, you're not going to win something in Pittsburgh. If you do, it would be the exception to the rule. These things don't really happen anymore. Where the
But
small market, it's not even a small market necessarily, but it's definitely a small budget franchise. I don't
right,
feel Pittsburgh is like, super tiny or anything like that. It's the Steelers
but
have done
they're
just
a low
fine there
budget
forever.
franchise though,
They are. They run themselves cheaply. It's sucks
and
for the
they have. I
fans.
mean, when was the last time they were relevant? When was the last time they were in the playoffs? Been
The
years,
last
hasn't
time
it?
I remember the Pirates truly being relevant was when Bonds and Bonilla were together with Jim Leland, and they were like a step away from getting past the Braves, which they never did, of course. And that's the early '90s, right,
What we're
Ben?
talking, yeah, it was the late '80s, early '90s,
Yeah,
right?
you're talking early '90s, especially the height of it was definitely early '90s. As the Braves were now establishing themselves as the National League dominant team, the Pirates were their early foil, and they had some great playoff moments. I think Sid Bream looms large. There's a name from the past, Sid
Oh yeah,
Bream.
oh
Oh
yeah.
boy.
But this kid, I mean, when I'm trying to think, when can you even declare? Is it
Who
5 years or
knows? I
7
don't
years?
know. I would think that he's going to be a Pirate for 5 years. I just feel like that one
Yeah,
way or the other, they'll find a way to keep him there. After that, all bets are off. I'd hate to see him go to Los Angeles. He looked great in pinstripes, so I'll give you that.
right.
You know, but yeah, he's a super stud, and that's the kind of thing we used to do. I don't know if we really function that way anymore. I mean, look at our rotation. One aggressive grab doesn't win you a championship. And Garrett was the right move at the time, Cole, and it was an aggressive grab. But you got to have more than one aggressive grab. The Yankee dynasty had Cone. That was an aggressive grab. They traded for Clemens. That was an aggressive move. You got to have those guys, and we're not built that way. So yeah, do I want them? Of course. Will we get them? Gonna have to change our urgency mode
I
to
mean,
get them.
do we give up prospects for him, or I
You
mean,
got to give up what you got to give up. I mean,
yeah,
outside of Aaron Judge, is anybody like out of the realm of possibility? You're going to tell me you're not going to possibly think of trading even an Anthony Volpe to get
I was
that guy?
you
To
just
get
read my
that
mind.
guy?
I would say like for him, I would
To
trade
get that
Volpe.
guy?
Yeah,
I want that guy.
oh yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
if it's not
Other
Aaron
than
Judge,
Judge,
I
I
bet
mean,
you. You
I
know what's
think
funny? I can hear Monty right now. Monty's going, "Fuck it. If it's Aaron Judge, I'll trade him too. I'm not trading Aaron
oh
Judge
no,
for
no.
Skeens,
I
but
mean,
I'll
short
trade
of
anyone
Judge,
else in that lineup. Anyone else in that lineup, and some minor league chips. Yeah, I would trade that for him. Of course I would.
yeah,
Of
no,
course I would. He's a stud.
definitely agree. Hopefully,
And he
we'll
has
see him
great
one
taste in the
day. I
ladies
think
too,
he's.
from what I
I don't think he's going to
understand.
be a.
With
He's got a
with
really
you
smoking hot girlfriend. I think
right, right. Yeah. So he's clearly
she's an
getting
athlete of
it
some
getting
kind, right?
yeah, he's getting it done, bottom line. And it is a shame. He's gonna like be great in
And
Pittsburgh, but so what?
by all accounts, a great kid too. Just wants to play baseball.
Yeah, you can see he's just a natural, I
Yeah,
mean, I look at him and I go, yeah, there's 250 wins. You know what I mean? Even
right.
today. Like, yep, that guy will be around for a long time. How does a guy like that fall to the Pirates anyway? Jeez.
Yeah,
Where's our scouts? You're fired. We should
right.
be
Right.
grabbing
I
a
didn't
guy
miss
like
him.
that.
All right, so this next guy, this is not a major league item, but it's definitely a baseball oddity. The guy's name is Amarian Boyd, and
Yeah.
he plays for the Beloit Sky Carp. What the fuck is a Sky Carp, Jimmy? Have you? I
Right?
mean, I'm 69. I'll be 70 on June 24th. I have never looked in the sky and seen a carp. I
Yeah,
mean,
isn't a
even under
carp?
the influence of the prescription medication,
Well, what is a carp again? Isn't a carp like a? Hey, help me out here. Isn't that like a
a
fish?
carp.
Or something?
It's a
Isn't it a
fish.
fish?
Yeah,
It's a fish.
yeah.
What's a fish doing up in the sky? Do they leap out of the water? Are they one of those?
I don't. I don't think a carp is a flying fish, but this
Yeah.
guy stole last week. Stole 6 bases in one game without
Okay.
the benefit of a base hit. So he gets on a fielder's choice,
Yeah.
a walk, and a hit by a pitch. And in each case, he swipes second and third.
Mm.
Um, this amazing, or do you not give a carp? I mean, a crap.
Uh, did you give me this story just to get that corny joke in?
Oh yeah, I got to get my
Oh,
shit in.
for God's sakes!
No, but
Is he?
the thing is, in the since the modern baseball league history, there has not been a single instance of a player not getting a hit, stealing 6 bases in a game. So it is kind of an oddity.
Yeah, it's definitely bizarre. Is he related to Oil Can Boyd by any chance?
A good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I guess
wonder.
when did what 75, 50? He could probably
He could be.
be
He
his
could be his
grandson,
kid.
maybe.
He could be his. Yeah. Wow. Oil Can Boyd's that old, huh? Wow, we're
Yeah,
old.
it's sad, sad, but
Amazing. Yeah, that is a bizarre thing, stealing 6 bases and not even getting a hit. Okay. I can
right.
go with that. How come he's not playing in the majors if he's that fast?
Well,
Remember
wait,
those guys who used to specialize? Like, what was that kid's name? There was a guy who was so goddamn
you
fast, and they
dealt
used to just.
Washington or one of the Washingtons in Oakland, right?
Uh, I don't know why I'm thinking the name
Herb
Roberts.
Washington.
There was a guy named Roberts that ran for the Red Sox, and they would put him in to run, and the guy was insane. There were guys like that. I remember there was a guy who couldn't hit a lick named Matt Alexander that they used to bring in to steal bases. But
Yeah,
that's
and
going
then
back.
a couple of different guys on the Oakland A's. But so now I'm really interested in hearing your take on this one. This story's been around for a couple of years, but I actually only saw it this week. So Wade Boggs claims
Yeah.
to have consumed 107 beers on a coast to coast plane flight and then went 2 for 3 against Mark Langston the next day. Truth or fiction?
Oh, he's full of shit. What is this, Andre the fucking Giant?
Well, I mean,
No,
what
Benny. No. First of all, First of all, what? How long is the coast to coast flight, please?
let's say you want to say 6 hours.
All right. Let's say worst case scenario. How long is it?
All right, that's 360 minutes. So you'd have to average a beer about every 3 minutes for the entire flight, and that doesn't even get. He's getting up and going, and he's peeing right with all those beers.
Yeah. No, it's nonsense. And it would fucking black you out, and you'd have to get your stomach pumped. Probably. This is not
Right.
Andre the Giant. This isn't Andre the Giant. I don't even know why he's saying this. Go eat some chicken. Wait.
You're fried
You know?
chicken.
I mean, do I believe that Doc Ellis took acid and fucking pitched lights out? Yeah, I do. I believe that story. But this is medically impossible for Wade Boggs
No,
to
and
do this.
I believe that Mickey Mantle would come into the dugout so hungover that he'd see the pitcher in double, but somehow
Yeah.
Casey would pinch hit him and he hit a 3-run
Yeah,
home run.
but
I
I don't
believe that.
believe Mickey Mantle was drinking 107 beers in a 6 to
Yeah,
8 hour period. No, this is just silly. Stop it, Wade.
yeah. I
You
mean,
look
and
good. You look good on the horse, though, Wade. When we won the title, you looked good on that horse going around the field, though. You know,
not one
you
of
look
his
good.
better moments here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Now, so it's not really a lot of current news, but we're going to have some fun here. We're going to have a little
Okay.
debate. We're going to have a little debate.
All right.
So, who are the greatest brothers in baseball history? Now, the
Wow.
only rule is that both brothers have to have a decent body of work. So, we can't have like Christy and Henry Mathewson or Hank and Tommy Aaron. So, I'm going to throw out several choices, and then and we can comment as I flash these up. But
Sure.
so
Sure.
this is Joe Dom and Vince DiMaggio. Obviously, Joe goes without saying in the middle.
Yeah.
Uh, Vince is on the left, I believe, and Dom is on the right. Vince
That is
didn't have
correct.
much of a career. I think Vince had a lifetime 249 batting average.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. I actually did some homework on this stuff, and
you did? All right. Fantastic.
I find this really fascinating. All right. Everybody knows about Joe. Obviously, Joe is a legend to the game. We all know about Joe. And if he had had those 4 years during the war, who knows what his numbers would have
Oh,
been?
God, yeah.
325 lifetime career, right-handed hitter. Righties don't have lifetime batting averages the way the lefties do. So this
And
was very impressive, and didn't strike out much at all. Might have hit more home runs.
361 home runs and
Yeah.
369. His
Right.
highest
Right.
strikeout season in any one season was 37. His highest.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Joe, and the way he played the outfield is legendary too, because he made everything look easy. He always got
Yeah,
under the ball. He just glided
effortless.
over. Yeah, he was a true natural. The hitting streak, the whole nation paid attention to the hitting streak. He was important enough that Paul Simon references him in Mrs. Robinson, the famous song from the '60s. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? We know about Joe. Joe and Marilyn Monroe. We know about Joe. Dominic is a very close to being a Hall of Famer and could be
Yes,
debated. Could be debated about it. I'm actually surprised that the Veterans Committee never got him in. A 298 lifetime career batting average. He only played 11 seasons. Again, the war gets in the way, but
he
he
lost. I
had
think he lost 3 seasons.
yeah, he had an 11-year career and he was a seven-time All-Star. So this is no joke here. 298 lifetime batting average, very solid in the field. A very, very good ball player who possibly could have been in the Hall of Fame. For some reason, didn't get through on the Veterans Committee. A little surprising. Excellent ball player. My father told me firsthand accounts of how good and how underrated Dominic was in Joe's shadow. And my father grew up
Yeah.
during all of that.
Plus
So
he played with Williams, so he was
yeah.
overshadowed by Ted Williams as well.
And then you get to Shemp. Now I know that no, but it's kind of sad in a way. Like yes, the lifetime batting average is 249. Uh, but during the war years in 43 and 44, Vince was two-time All-Star.
Right.
Had a 10-year career. He played for a decade. The third one, the afterthought. What if I said to you, okay, Benny, this is what's going to happen during your life. You're going to have a 10-year career in the Major League Baseball. You'll be a two-time All-Star. You'll have, would you take that? I'd be like,
Oh hell
sure,
yeah.
I'll take that. And Vince doesn't even get a blank because of the prowess of Joe and Dominic being so goddamn good.
Right. Yes.
So the afterthought was a two-time All-Star. I understand it's during the war, and a lot of the best ball players were overseas fighting. I get that part, but still, he was being an ambassador to the game, and he homered in one of the All-Star games, by the way, and got three hits. So it's not
And I
like the guy was a.
believe he had 100 ribby season.
Mhm. Well, there you go. So a very talented family,
Oh yeah.
obviously. A very talented family. Definitely should be on anybody's list, no matter what.
All righty. All right. Next we have Gaylord and Jim Perry.
Now, I do believe that these brothers are the ones who have won Cy Youngs. I
Correct.
think I think
Gaylord with
Gaylord has
two
two, and Jim won one in like 1970 or something like
with
that.
the Twins, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Jim cleared 200 wins. I think he had like 215 or something like that. And Gaylord, of course, had over 300 and all the strikeouts and threw a no hitter. And we all know about the great Gaylord Perry. Uh, Another case where Jim is an afterthought, and Jim had a great career. He's almost arguable for Hall of Fame on a Veterans Committee argument, right, Ben?
Yeah, he's got a sign. He threw 32 shutouts. That's not too shabby.
Not at all. I think, clearing the 200 wins and stuff, pretty damn good career. Pretty damn good career.
I
These
mean, he
brothers
was.
definitely should
I'm
be
not
on
going to say
anybody's
he
list.
was a he was borderline great pitcher. He's definitely very
Right.
good.
He was very good. I'll go with very good. He's not Mike Musina,
No,
right?
no,
You know?
no.
I mean, like, but he's very good though. He definitely
He
had a very
was. I
good
mean, one
career.
of the better pitchers of his time, though, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm suspecting we're going to get to some brothers on this list also that remind me of these two. But I digress.
All right. Okay, doke. We got next. We got the Alou brothers, Felipe, Matty, Jesus.
Well, Felipe is the best of the three. Would you agree?
I would say, as far as all around ball player, yes. Although I think Matty won at least one batting title. I think he had a career average over 300. He was the
He did.
slap hitter, but
He
Felipe,
did.
yeah,
He
he
was
was
the
the
slap
stud.
hitter. He was the higher average hitter, but Felipe was the guy with over 200 home runs and multiple All Star games. I think at least three.
Yeah,
He had more power all around. His lifetime average, I think, was like 289 or something. So
yeah,
he's
not not not
look.
shabby at all.
They were all high average hitters, all three of them. Um, but I think Felipe is the best, and he also was a hell of a manager too. Let's not let that get lost
Yes,
too.
sir. Yeah.
Manager of the year for the Expos, right in '94. That terrible year where the strike happened. But
Only time in history all three brothers played in the same game in the outfield. They
Right.
got that going for them, right?
Right. And they were all good. Jesus is obviously the third of the three, but I mean they were all good ball players.
Yeah, he had a nice career. I mean, I
He was an
think it was,
all-star too, you
yeah,
know. They were
absolutely.
all they all had their moments. They were all good outfielders, right? I mean, it's ironic that the slap hitter is the one with the really high, much higher average. Not much, but look, he's 305, I think, right? Lifetime. He was a good hitter,
Yeah, right.
really good hitter. But I'll have to go with Felipe as the
Many
best all
many
around.
200 hit seasons with the Pirates.
Not to mention what the following generation did in the Alou family, because that one surpassed everybody.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know? Oh my God. What a family. Very talented. Definitely on anyone's list.
And
Anyone's.
here, two more pitching brothers, Ramon and Pedro Martinez. You forget about Pedro's older brother.
Yeah. Ramon was pretty good. It wasn't bad. He had a pretty decent, little career. He didn't stay healthy, right? That was
I
the
think
issue
he
with
had
him.
121 season. He was 135 and 88, over 600
Uh-huh.
winning percentage, through
Yeah.
20 shutouts. Of course,
Yeah.
like he gets dwarfed by Pedro, had like ungodly numbers.
Yeah. Pedro was ridiculous. When you look back on the fact that what Pedro was doing, I always like, it's gonna sound strange, but I always likened him to Dominic Hasek as a goaltender. The earn run average at the time, and Hasek at the time was putting up goals against averages that were just. What do you mean your goals against average is under two? What do you mean your ERA is under two during a steroid era? It's like, how? Or low twos, with all those strikeouts. It was like, and you looked at Pedro, and Pedro wasn't a big guy. This wasn't Randy Johnson or Nolan Ryan or even a J.R. Richard when J.R. Richard was throwing like gas. It wasn't like that kind of thing going on. But somehow Pedro was just a wizard.
Pedro was like Gidry size, right? Maybe Gidry wasn't
Yeah,
a big
he
guy
was. He
either.
wasn't a big guy. Guidry wasn't a big guy either. Guidry did throw hard though. He had
Yeah,
the violent motion, if you understand what I'm saying. There was something about Pedro's smoothness. There was a
right.
difference in the delivery. Pedro also mentally was such a fierce competitor. He was really savage about how he went about pitching. I'm sure you've seen clips of him, like when one of the guys on his team would get hit, he would basically walk over to them immediately when they'd come back to the dugout, and he would ask them, which one on the other team? Which one do you want me to hit? I think about that. I mean, I want a guy like that on my team. I'm sorry, folks. I know it doesn't sound like a nice thing to be doing, but hey, if you get your guy hit, Pedro wanted to hit your guys. The end.
No,
You
he's
know.
not really. He's not worried about like well, I only got 4 innings in. If I hit this guy, they might eject me, and I won't get the victory. I mean, he's not thinking that way.
No, he was a fierce competitor. I
He's a
mean,
team guy.
I hated him. I always hated him because he was the enemy. I always thought he was a dick. I hated when he threw Zimmer on his head, even though I understood that nobody should be charging at
Oh yeah,
anybody. Nobody should be charging at anybody. Jesus, Don, what are you thinking? But grabbing him by the head and flinging him, I was like, man, you could have just sidestepped him. I mean, you're not gonna,
yeah.
you
I'm gonna
didn't have to
hammer
do
lock or
that.
something. Yeah,
But hey, Don asked for it. That was pretty stupid of Don. And being older
yeah.
and supposedly wiser, you don't be doing that
You,
anyway.
your
But I'll
best
tell you
days
what,
were 40
somebody
years
somebody
behind
should
you.
have killed Pedro over that on the Yankees. I always felt like that was like part of the worm turning. We did defeat them that
Right.
that series, but the worm obviously turned the next year. I didn't like that. I felt like the whole
Yeah.
team should have murdered him for that, but that's my opinion. They
No, I
were
got you.
definitely a very good 1-2 punch. I mean, of course the scales are tilted when Pedro Martinez is your brother, but pretty
Right.
good job by Ramon over the years. He was pretty good when he
Oh
was
yeah.
able to be out there.
135 wins, 20 shutouts. Not shabby.
Yeah, like
All
you
right. How
said, the
about
winning
these guys?
percentage. There they are.
Uh,
That's the other Perry brothers to me. You know what I'm saying? Phil and Joe. Because you got the 300 winner like Gaylord, you got Joe. By the way, are there any knuckleballers left in the league anymore
I don't think
today?
so.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Uh, Maybe because it's the lost art.
Why would it be a lost art that there's not one person out there that wants to develop and throw that ball? I'm wondering why R.A. Dickey was basically the last we saw of like a dominant knuckleball pitcher. Phil Negro is obviously the king of knuckleballers, correct? I mean, who's really got him beat? Not too
No, I
many.
mean,
I
no,
don't
I
think
mean you had
anybody does
Wilbur Wood
really.
back in the day. You had
Yeah,
Hoyt
yeah, he's not.
Wilhelm, but no,
Yeah, he's not. Yeah. Phil Negro was basically the king of that. And Joe was damn good. Joe also cleared 200 wins, right?
I think he was at 219 or something like that.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah.
bad pitcher by any means.
And as you can see, they both played for the Yankees. Didn't Phil get his 300th win with the Yankees? I'm pretty
He
sure he
might
did.
have. That's a good point though, Jimmy. As far as like if you're a fastball pitcher, unless you're Nolan Ryan, your best days are behind you. Like your mid 30s. You're a
Yeah,
knuckleball pitcher. You got 35. You got have
yeah,
10 solid seasons left. I'd
yeah.
want I'd want the longevity.
As stupid as it sounds, when I was playing ball, I played catcher for so many years, and then as I got older, I developed an interest in pitching in the leagues I played in, and I developed a knuckleball. I was the only one, and it worked. My winning percentage was better than Ramon Martinez's.
Uh,
People didn't know what to do with it. It's just, it's just such a dead nothing ball, and if you know how to place it, the hitter is fucked. He's just gonna swing at a vanishing nothing ball, and it works. So I am like Tim Wakefield. What was that? 15 years he played with the Red Sox or some
oh
shit
God,
like that.
forever
I
he
mean,
played. Yeah.
and it doesn't tax your arm at all to throw that pitch. And most hitters fail against it if you're good at it. So I am surprised that it's disappeared. There should be somebody still doing it. It shouldn't be a lost art. Fuck these launch angles. Throw them a knuckleball. Watch them launch their asses back to the bench.
Do you think it's just that we're obsessed with the fastball and everybody's got to throw 100 miles an hour? And
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you think of a guy like Wilbur Wood. Didn't he pitch both games of a doubleheader once?
I would believe it if he did.
I think he
Like I
did. And
said,
I
it
mean, you
doesn't
can take
really it doesn't really tax your arm.
no,
You're pushing the ball. You're not really like, violently swinging your rotator cuff forward.
and
It, it's
you can go every 4 days. You're going to get
Yeah.
40 starts a year when your teammates are all getting 32 because
Yeah, the only bitch is for the catcher. It is a nightmare for catchers, because when I got the idea to start throwing knuckleballs and do some pitching to take it easy on my body later on, when I used to catch a knuckleballer, and knuckleballers are very difficult. You really got to pay attention. The ball sails around all over the place. It's so different than when someone's just throwing the ball hard and it's spinning the way it normally does and all that other stuff. Knuckleballers, you're really in for a day when you're catching a knuckleballer. That's
right.
usually why they had specialists. Didn't most knuckleball pitchers have a special
They
catcher for
did, and
that?
they had those gigantic oversized gloves to catch
Yeah.
them with.
And that's where I got the idea. Because the guy that I first was catching, you'll love this name too. How's this for a baseball name? Cheese Rodriguez.
Perfect.
Yeah. He was like a 40 something year old guy that the 20 something year olds couldn't hit. He would come in and he would throw these fucking disgusting floating knuckleballs. And he had some decent velocity on them too, because he was a fairly large sized guy and he could get some speed on it too at the same time. These kids didn't know what to do with that shit. I was in my 20s at the time when I was catching him, and I thought to myself, you know what? When I get older and I don't want to catch two games in the hot August anymore, maybe I'll freaking work on a knuckleball. I got a championship out of it. I was happy.
But I
It's a
mean, you
good
would
pitch.
think nowadays, like with everybody like sitting on the fastball, somebody, getting back to your point, somebody coming in with a good knuckleball, I think would be very, very hard to hit
Right.
these days.
Well, it's awesome when you can control it. I remember using it when I used it. I really once I learned how to control it, it was a joy because you knew you could purposely spot a ball and get them to chop down. It was so simple when you're on. And I'm sure Necro could tell you all about that from a baseball perspective because when you're on and you've got control of that knuckleball, they are so at your mercy. You throw pitches where you already know what the end result's going to be. It worked like that for me with the knuckleball.
Right,
Other pitches, you hope for the best. You feel if you feel good that day, blah blah blah. But the control factor that a knuckleball pitcher possesses when he's on is superior to me than just being able to throw hard.
right.
It
Yeah.
really made people look silly. I remember calling the catcher out and telling him I was going to spot the ball in a certain place. Just stand at home plate and wait, because the bases were loaded. I was in a jam, and I spotted it. The guy chopped it right back to me, threw it to home, stood on the plate. That's it. Inning over. Everybody
There
go
you
sit
go.
down.
There you go.
Great pitch, and these brothers were great.
Oh
Period.
yeah, absolutely. So are these brothers,
Oh
Big
boy.
Poison and Little Poison, the Wayner brothers.
Well, now you're going way back. Paul clearly better, obviously, but both 300 hitters. No.
Yeah, Paul, 3,152 hits, 333 batting average. They're both in the Hall of Fame, though.
Yeah, they
Uh,
both are. Yeah,
and he
yeah.
was
Look,
Paul was Big Poison. He was 5'8", 153, and he was Big Poison.
right, but he'd hack you to death. You know,
Right.
he would hack you to death. What was he? 333 lifetime. His brother was
333. Lloyd was 316.
316. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, between the two of them, 5,600 hits.
That's pretty. That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
Are they the most? Let me see. Let me see what we've done so far here. I wonder how they would stack up against Joe and Dom statistically, but we don't have time to start breaking out calculators. That's a hell of a brother combination. Both in the Hall of Fame, they'd have to take it so far as yeah, something.
Achievement, yeah.
They take it so far because they're the only ones that are both in the Hall of Fame on the list we've covered so far.
All right, here we go.
Wow.
Dizzy and Paul Dean.
That's another situation. You know what's funny? When I was looking at Dizzy Dean's numbers, is it like a Sandy Koufax situation where he was just so great and
He,
stuff because he's got 150 career wins, and then I start thinking about Munson, right away, and I'm going, okay, well, if Dizzy's in with 150 career wins for whatever, how come Munson's not in for his decade of dominance? These kind
yeah,
of
I
things,
mean,
kind of
Dizzy
like
did not have a lot of good. I mean, had several great seasons, but did not have I mean, it wasn't
right.
consistent year after year.
Right, right. It is a little puzzling, when I see that. So it's obviously to me he was a rocket in the sky. I guess he's like a Gale Sayers or something like that. When he was great, he was just so goddamn great. Or a Koufax who had like what a 5 or 6 year run in his career that put him in the Hall of Fame. Um,
What did Yogi say about Koufax? I think he was like 25-5, and Yogi said, I understand why Sandy won 25 games. What I don't understand is how he lost five. I mean, he was
right.
that good.
Yeah, Pete Rose was talking about having to deal with Sandy Koufax. He was like, nah, he's. And if that all-time hit machine is saying that guy was a huge problem, he was a huge problem.
Yeah.
Paul was a decent pitcher. Nothing like
No,
Dizzy though.
50 wins and 38 of them were in the first two seasons. He kind of fizzled
Right,
out after that.
right. He fizzled out.
But pretty up for Dizzy and Daffy for a couple of seasons, man. They were the shit.
Right, right. That they were.
All right. Last guys. George and Ken Brett.
Interesting. Wasn't Ken Brett a Yankee?
Ken Brett played for 10 different teams. I believe one
Yeah,
of them was the New York Yankees.
yeah. Ken Brett was okay. I remember him being okay. Another case where By the way, my brother's George Brett. Went. You know, George Brett. Oh God, how much did you dread when George Brett came to the plate?
Oh, forget it.
I mean, the Pine Tar game. I knew. I actually already could feel it that George Brett was going to hit one like into the next county. And when he did, I loved Frank Mess's call. I mean, who calls a game like that nowadays? You can't do that nowadays because it was such a homer call. But Frank Messer was a great announcer. And Gossage throws the ball strikes bat, and there goes Messer. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It's gone. And then all the weirdness that transpired after that with the measuring of the bat, putting it up against the plate. Didn't Gaylord Perry run off with it, by the way? Back to Gaylord.
Was he on the Royals at that time? He might have been.
No, I think he might have been on the Yankees and grabbed the bat and
Oh,
ran into the line to keep the evidence.
wow.
I think he was on the Yankees. I think I know Gaylord was a Yankee at one point. I think he was in the Yankee dugout. I might have it backwards, and he was in the Royal. Gaylord played for a lot of teams too, didn't he?
Gaylord
Oh,
did play for the Royals. I'd have to look that one up. But all I
yeah.
remember is
I know
Brett.
Gaylord grabbed the bat and ran into a dugout and ran into the clubhouse with it. I know that much.
I just
Uh,
remember George running out of the dugout.
oh,
I've
George
never
wouldn't
seen
believe.
eyes bug out of somebody's head like that.
Well, it was nonsense, but what was more nonsense to me is that if the rule is the rule, when the infraction happens, it's the rule. But of course, they reversed it and made them play the rest of that game later, like the last inning of or whatever, and that's when Billy Martin protested and put Ron Guidry in center field. You remember all of that,
Oh yeah.
you know? George Brett was great. He
But
was
what
great.
what
Now,
what genius did it take though for Billy to say that the bat had with the pine tar? I mean, that was brilliant, wasn't it?
it was, but I'm wondering if it was Billy himself who pointed it out. Billy did come out and make a case for it, but I'm wondering if someone else said something to him about it.
Maybe
I remember reading something, but it's not coming to me right now. Now, here's the big question: George Brett or Mike Schmidt? Who are you picking?
Schmidt.
Right. It always goes back to Mike Schmidt, doesn't it?
Oh, I mean, Mike Schmidt or Brooks?
No, I'm
I'd
taking
probably
Schmidt.
still pick Schmidt
I'm taking Schmidt. You know.
because there's like Brooks was. I'm sure Brooks was better defensively, but I mean, you got those power numbers by Schmidt.
Yeah. And how many Gold Gloves did Schmidt win?
Oh, truckload, and
So when
not
you
a not a big average hitter, but he wasn't a slouch. I mean, he hit the 270.
yeah, Mike Schmidt was a problem. He was a big time problem. George
Yeah,
Brett was a great average hitter, though. I remember the year he hit 390, but didn't he have hepatitis that year? And he had won the batting title with only like 110 games played or
I think
something like that.
the one of the few players in history that had more RBIs than games played in a season.
That's pretty
Hasn't happened
amazing.
in a long time. I don't think it's happened since then.
How many home runs do you think George Brett would have hit if he had been a Yankee his entire career with the short porch? He had 300 and whatever
He probably would have hit
lifetime.
400 then.
Right,
I would
right.
think.
Could he have been a 500 home run guy in an
He,
entire career
I
of
mean,
being a
he
Yankee?
probably would have had to have adjusted his swing, and it probably would have cost him some points on his average. I don't know if he would have done that,
That's true.
but I
He was a
think
hitter.
he
He
could
was a
have if
hitter's
he
hitter.
wanted to. I think he could have.
He could have, but I think I would have preferred to keep him just the way he was.
No, he was great. So
He's a great
who
average
takes
hitter.
the cake here, Jim?
Well, technically, it's got to be the Wayner brothers, doesn't it?
Well, I guess if
They're
the
the
fact
only
that they're
ones
both
on
in the
this.
Hall of
They're
Fame,
the only ones on this list that are both in the Hall of Fame.
right?
How do you argue with that? You know what I mean?
Then, but Joe and Dom are damn close. I think
They are damn close, but they're not both in the Hall of Fame. I,
so.
I can't I can't get past what is. You
Right,
know what I mean? When I look at the
right.
list, of course I lean towards Joe and Dom emotionally and everything like that. They're Yankees and Red Sox. They're the DiMaggio brothers.
If somehow
They're
he gets voted in by the Veterans Committee, meaning Dom, will have maybe we can revise our take on
right,
this.
and don't forget that they're the most famous of the brothers on this list. They're not technically on paper the ones that are in the Hall of Fame. So I would say that it's Dizzy and Paul and Lloyd, and then Joe and Dom.
Yeah, like
You know,
one
and
and
then I
like a
don't know who
very
would
very
come in
close
third.
to.
It's like the Negro brothers have a great case, and so do the Perry brothers
Yeah,
as for who comes in third. But the Alou family could start arguing about that too.
right. Yeah,
It's a pretty good list, Benny.
yeah. It was fun talking about it though. So here's something that's not too fun. Brian Cashman recently won his 2500th game as general manager for the Yankees. So he
Right?
won 4 championships in his first 12 seasons, but none in his past 15. So I get it. You win 4 championships, you buys you some time. But has that time passed?
Well, if you start thinking that he won 3 championships in his first 3 seasons,
Right, 98 through 2000, right?
right, and then you start thinking about how there's been 2000 is part of the final part of the act of the trilogy, and then you have to wait till 2009. So technically, there's been one title in this century for the most part.
One in the last 24 seasons.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal, you know. Is he a Hall of Fame GM? Yeah, yeah,
That was my other
yeah,
question.
yeah,
Does he make it? Yeah, I believe he will.
yeah. Yeah, of course he will. Why wouldn't he?
Right.
Are we tired of his act? The same way, and we've talked about this last week, I think, or the week before on Baseball Bums, of that the same way the Cowboy fans are tired of Jerry. Jerry's also the owner, so that complicates things more. But we're definitely, as Yankee fans, exasperated and exhausted with Cashman and Hal. Of course we are. Winning the pennant last year probably didn't do the fans any favors by not at least winning the championship as well, because now Cashman's validated for another 5 years, isn't he? It's like he's kind of like here for life, and it feels that way. It doesn't feel like we're necessarily getting any better, or I don't get the vibe that there's no Clemens coming over the horizon, or a Cone, or a David Wells, or a bench where you're looking at the depth of a Chili Davis and Fielder and Strawberry and all these. I don't see the urgency anymore. I feel like the machine has taken over, and that's all fine and dandy, but where's the championships? You've got the corporate thing down. You're a global brand. You're worth the most in baseball. You have a high budget, but you don't really put together the components like you used to. And it's frustrating watching Cashman. He is one of the great GMs in the game, but he stopped doing the things that got him there in the first place. Like Verlander years back. I know we beat the dead horse, but years back, there was a time where you had to know Justin Verlander's the guy to get. We didn't get him.
Right.
At the time, I felt that David Price was still a hot commodity. Get Justin Verlander and David Price. Just get those two, and everything else we've got around us. Don't forget, this is the 2017 and on kind of situation with the Yankees. They got some good shit going on there. They got a young Aaron Judge. They got Gary Sanchez wasn't ruined yet. He's hitting 40 home runs almost, or whatever.
Right.
You got some good shit going on here. Get Justin Verlander, get David Price. At the time that I wanted them, it both resulted within a year or two that Verlander had a ring, and so did Price. Price got the closing deal, the game clinching World Series win for the Red Sox in 2018. I'm like, fuck. This is where you wind up waiting instead of getting a title in 2017 or 2018, because you didn't aggressively go after, like you did back in the day, Clemens or Cone. You didn't go after Verlander or Price. You're not. Uh, the formula that made him great and made the Yankees great in the first place is right in front of his face, and he created it. Why do you ignore it? Why do you let so many years go by before you address it again and know what to do, when to do it, like a Verlander or a Price?
It seems to me like now the standard is, if they win 90 something games and they make it in the playoffs and they do a little bit of damage, he's considering it a decent season where, we
Right,
want the championship every year.
right. Last year, I'm sure he's very proud of himself. He got the pennant, and to his credit, they won the pennant. I didn't think they
Right.
would, but they did. And it was a weird season as far as I'm concerned. It was a weird Yankee team that got to the World Series. I didn't feel like, yeah, we're going to do it. I never felt like that, even before the series started, before Aaron Boone, butt fucked himself and the whole team, and the Cortez nonsense and throwing away game one and all that crap and creating all the momentum for the Dodgers, whatever. I didn't feel confident in them going in. I was like, who are the clutch guys? I mean, there were two guys. There were basically two guys, and one of them didn't show up at all, and that's Aaron. So it's like,
Unfortunately, you were correct. Yeah,
yeah,
speaking of him, here we go. That's a good
yeah,
segue. So I really want to hear your take on this. So he's off to a great start again. He's got 20 ribbies in 12 games, and it's way too soon to project anything. But I really think if he stays healthy all season, he wins his third MVP. That don't you think that he should have three MVPs already? Shouldn't he have
yeah.
won that
Yeah.
2017 MVP?
Yeah, no, his numbers pissed on Altuve's. Altuve won that. Number one, he's not a Yankee, and number because there is Yankee bias. Don't hand me that bullshit that there isn't, because there is. And Altuve was the popular guy to vote for that. He had a great year. Don't get me wrong, but if you put their
Yeah, he
numbers,
did. He was solid. He
if
won
you
the, I
put
think
their numbers side by side, though, Judge is winning on like most of the categories. Stop it.
yeah.
Just stop.
Judge is
Stop it.
producing runs.
Right. Judge has had four monster seasons, and he looks like he's on his way to a fifth. Oddly enough, though, time is moving very quickly. People don't realize that technically this is his 10th season wearing pinstripes. So
And he's
only
going to be
half the time,
33, and he's going to be
yeah,
33 soon, I think.
only half the time he's been healthy, and he's got insane numbers. He's still on pace for the Hall of Fame, but he's got to stay healthy. I think he's going to wind up getting in if he clears 400 home runs one way or the other. He's been a great ambassador for the game and a great Yankee and all that other good stuff.
Well,
His
he's
postseason
at
leaves a lot to be desired.
He's at 321, 736. But how about this guy? So this guy started out like a house of fire, right? Trout.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, I thought the guy was going to hit 600 home runs easy. I don't think he's going to. I don't
I
think he's
never
even going to
felt
make 500 now.
I never felt that way. I never felt that way. I felt that Mike Trout's overall best selling point was he was an all-around great ball player.
Well, he was, yeah, but he did have some
Okay.
excellent
But I
power as
never
well.
felt to myself that Mike Trout's going to be a 500 home run guy. Uh, when you look at Mike Trout's career, it just goes to show how different this past generation of baseball's been in comparison to the numbers we've looked at in the past. Okay, Trout. From what I understand here, I was looking at this. I thought this was interesting. I think he's only led the major leagues one time in RBIs. One time. He's had 3 seasons, I think, of 100 RBIs or more in his entire 14-year career so far. And he's had 30 or more home runs 8 times. So this is a guy who's clearly, and defensively, we know how good. Look, he's an all-around great ball player. And that's what he is. So I never expected 500 home runs out of him. I think that if he gets over 400, he's going to get in one way or the other. He should get in for the great all around ball player he was. But I never, ever looked at him like on a power number level like I have some of the past guys in the past. You know, what? This is Ken Griffey Jr. offensively? No. When you say 600 home runs, think about the number you're throwing out there. All right, 600 home runs. When I think of a guy that's going to hit 600 home runs, now if Judge was healthy his entire career, yeah, that's a guy I think that could hit 600 home runs. Trout never pegged him for 500. I thought to myself from the beginning with Trout, we're gonna look at a guy who's going to have handfuls of Gold Gloves, 450 or so career home runs, 1,500 RBIs. You know what I'm getting at? Like the ultimate all around power hitting, but not a 500 home run guy. I never saw him that way. I never did. He's not Hank Aaron. He's not going to hit 35 home runs for 20 years in a row. You know what I'm saying? So
Does
I think
he
Trout's a
makes he
great
makes the
player.
Hall, all right?
Yeah, I think he's one of the best players, if not the best all around player of his time. And it goes to show that a guy who's going to maybe get what 400 and something home runs.
Yeah,
You
he's
know,
at
it's
383, 965 ribbies. So
yeah.
he's gonna get in the 400s. He's gonna
When you
get
when
1100
you look at
ribbies.
these other guys like a Machado and stuff, you think Machado's going to hit 500 home runs?
No, no,
You
absolutely not.
understand what I'm getting at? Like this particular generation of studs is not Willie Mays. It's not Ken Griffey. It's not shit. It's not Sammy Sosa. It's not Mark McGuire. Roy's and all.
It might be Judge. I mean, if and
Judge is the guy that could slug back in the 1950s with Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. Of course he is, but Trout to me is more closer to Duke in the offensive portion of things, and that's not a knock, my friend. You know what I mean? I just don't look at him like Willie or Mickey level. I don't. I never did. As an all-around ball player, though, he's one of the best.
oh yeah,
He's one of the
yep,
best. It's not Barry Bonds, though. I mean,
no.
Barry Bonds was a great all-around ball player, all before roids. Come on,
I
guy
mean,
did
when you
everything.
think about Bonds, I mean, shit, he could hit for
Bonds,
average.
Bonds,
He could.
Bonds was a
I
great.
mean, base runner extraordinaire,
Yeah,
superb left fielder. You
yeah.
know,
Oh no, no. Barry Bonds was unbelievable, but I still say the most beautiful natural ball player I ever saw play in person was Ken Griffey Jr. I'm
Griffey. Yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry. Just
that swing was like
oh
perfect.
my God, he hit one in the upper deck one time back in the '90s when I was at a game. I was like, "Are you serious?" The swing was just so
And look, I mean,
gorgeous.
could he
Oh
have
my!
even weighed a buck 80?
No, yeah, okay, maybe 180, 180, whatever, 185, whatever. He was in great shape, though. I mean, you looked at him, it was like there is, it was
Like
like
negative body fat.
is there such thing as a muscular gazelle? I mean, he was kind of like that. I was like,
Yeah,
holy crap, this guy, just fluidity at its best. Great outfielder too. I watched him climb the wall in Yankee
yeah, he
Stadium. I'm
would.
like, holy
Yes,
shit. Don't run on him. Just everything about him. And I always hated that they treated him badly as a kid. I was like, no wonder he never wanted to play for us. You know that story.
and what are the chances that two of the greatest ball players of all time, Stan Musial and Ken Griffey, are from some bumfuck town called Donora, Pennsylvania? Like, what are the odds?
That's a miracle unto itself that they both, and years later too, years apart.
Right, Right.
Very strange.
Yeah,
Very
Griffey was born in
strange.
'69, I believe, and
Yeah.
Musial was probably about 1918 or something like that. Yeah, like
Yep.
50 years apart. But this next
Yep.
topic is very, very important.
Okay.
All right.
What the
Last
fuck
and
is
not
that?
least. So
What
on
is that?
Thursday at Fenway Park, a fan caught a foul ball with a funnel cake. Are you?
Okay.
Is that impressive, Jimmy, or what?
Yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't that be impressive? How did he catch the ball with the funnel cake? What, he just like stuck out the funnel cake and
Just
it
held it
flew
up.
into the,
Yeah,
and it didn't, like, the cake didn't explode. Look at this.
yeah.
Wow. Was this like an old?
That wasn't the funnel cake. I couldn't find a clip of the actual guy
Oh, I'm
with
like looking at this funnel cake and I'm like, how did the funnel cake
this is
survive
a
the
generic
impact?
funnel cake. Yeah, I couldn't.
Oh, okay. See what happens when you wear shades? Okay. All right.
I
Interesting.
think on the MLB website they do have a video of the guy catching the ball with the funnel cake. But Jimmy, I found in this. I went back in the archives and I found that Moish Mendelbaum played for the 1924 House of David, and he left his glove at home, and he played the entire game in center field with a Bialy.
He did not. Would you stop it? Is that true?
No, of course he didn't.
Would it be
No,
alley? Well, why not? People are catching balls
with a
with
Bialy.
funnel cakes. Why not?
Right. I mean, if you can catch it right,
Why
exactly.
not? Did you ever have not that did you ever have a ball like taken away from you that was rightfully yours, like during a batting practice or during a foul ball during the game that came into the stands? Did you ever have any
Taken away?
experience
No,
like that?
no, no. I did.
Okay.
I did have
Okay.
a foul ball from John Olerud hit me right in the kneecap, and some kid ran under my seat and got it, but I didn't really care. I was more embarrassed
Okay.
than he catch the ball.
Okay. Yeah. I had a couple of experiences. I clearly remember as a 10-year-old seeing during batting practice Paul Blair was going to throw a ball to the kids in the crowd. And I thought to myself, if I get to the back of the crowd, because all the hands are all reaching for the ball as Paul's lofting it in, I'm like, if I get to the back of the crowd, it'll probably kick backwards to me. And it did. And I was running to get it. It bounced. It started going down the hall, the walkway to the concession stands. And I started running for it. And some big guy came flying past me and just grabbed it. And my father was with me. And I looked at my dad like somebody had stolen my lunch. I was like, oh man, that was mine. I had thought it out and everything. The ball landed where I thought it would, you know. And this full-sized adult guy came flying up. My father was giving him dirty looks. I'm like, oh boy. I never got over that. And then 15 years later, Rich Monteleone, remember him?
Yes, I sure do.
I went early for batting practice, and now I'm 20 something years old, and I'm still never gotten that ball, you know. And I used to go early to all the batting practices. You'd think at one point I would get a ball, you
Right.
know. All those games, you show up early enough, you know. And I called to Rich Monteleone. I was like, Rich, doing good so far this year, because he was doing okay. You know, the Yankees were starting to get good. Showalter was the manager, you know. And Monteleone, like, nodded to me. And then he pointed me out and he threw the ball right. I had brought a glove this time. I was older. I was wiser. I brought a glove. He threw a strike right into the glove. And I was like, wow, I finally got my first baseball, you
Nice.
know. Then I got a couple of foul balls a few years later. So that was nice.
I've never gotten a major league foul ball. I've gotten a few minor league, but never a major league.
I had one where Jeff Reardon was on the Yankees very briefly, and he threw a pitch to Damian Easley. You remember him?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and I was sitting up in like the first row of the upper deck, and straight behind home plate, and he fouled one back, and I came right to me. So
nice.
that was pretty cool. And then I got a batting practice ball that was hit by Mattingly. So I was pretty excited about that. That
Oh
Donegan
yeah,
hit that one.
that's a keeper for sure.
Yeah, I've kept all three of them. I still have them. They're all old and yellow. You know how that goes with baseballs.
Hey,
But
I still bring my glove to the ballpark.
yeah, and you get
It's
to have
it,
the quaint experience of a smaller ballpark. I don't know if you ever got to see a Long Island Ducks game when I was back in
I
Long
did.
Island, but I got
I went to a bunch of
yeah,
games there. Yes, I
it was
did.
very cool. Very cool.
Right.
Very
Yeah,
nice
nice
experience.
stadium. Yeah, it's kind of the same here. I mean, I'll probably go this Sunday.
Right,
The ballpark's about half an hour for me in Clearwater. I
right.
think they start at noon. It costs. I think I can get in for $7. How do you beat that, right? Free
You don't.
parking,
Yeah, you
free
don't beat
parking.
that. You
Yeah,
don't
then I
beat that.
Go to McGillicuddy's, get my craft beer, whatever's looking good, and go to
There you go.
Delco's, get my Philly cheesesteak, sit out in the
You're all
sun, eat a
set.
cheesesteak. Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, are you watching high quality baseball? No, but you might be watching the next big thing. How do you know? Like the next Paul Skeens, next next Griffey. Who the hell knows?
You don't know. Like I told you, I used to that little baseball field that was across from old Yankee Stadium. I used to watch this kid launching balls. It was Manny Ramirez, dude.
Jeez.
And I remember when he wound up on the Indians. I'm like, I remember talking with my friends that I used to go to the games with. I'm like, now how the fuck did that kid that we used to walk past
A
right
Bronx
across
boy, right?
right across the goddamn street from Yankee Stadium is launching these missile shots. You can tell when he's 16, 15, who is this kid? How did he wind up in Cleveland?
Yeah.
Probably wanted to
That
have
was
those dreadlocks, and we weren't ready to accept that until now. What do you think?
maybe. Who knows?
Oh, what
Who
a
knows?
missed opportunity that was.
Yeah. Well, guys, another great episode of the Baseball Bums is in the record books. If you love chatting about the national pastime, you're definitely in the right place. And if you're looking for some great and even a little great wrestling and even a little non-wrestling content, please hit the like and subscribe button and become a part of the Monty and the Farrow family, just like the 79 Pirates, right? We are family. Mr. Farrow,
Ah,
would you do the honors and take us home, please?
you've been watching the Baseball Bums, and until next time, see you later.